So that's that portion of fabric care. I'm going to jump into household care, switching gears a little bit, moving slightly different room from the laundry room to say under the sink. Here we examined 8.6 million consumer data points, ranging from search, social, and reviews. Looked at 22 categories. One of the overall themes is fluffy. It's cute. It's adorable. We got it at the height of COVID lockdowns. We emptied the pet shops and we emptied the Humane Society kennels, and we all own pets now. And so 70% of US households own pets, and they're messy. I own 3 dogs. I get it. They're very messy. It was 67% the last year was measured by the APPA Pet Owners Society in 2019. So in 2020, there's not a lot of stuff that the entire households go from 67 to 70. That's a big jump in the size of this country. So they're messy. So what's growing? So if you think about cleaning, from the sanitization at the peak of COVID to now, I'm running around chasing after my puppy or my dog or the cat. So we're seeing a lot of stuff jump onto this chart that weren't there last year, like deodorizers higher up than they might have been before, couch cleaners higher up than they might have been before, mops, dusters. It's the who's who of what you need to do to clean up. And it's driven by, if anything, there's more home ownership, but there's also more pets. And we just think that's really interesting trend. We tend to think of pet products belonging in their own aisle, but the extent we can bring pet products into regular household cleaning as purpose-built solutions, the better. And I don't think anybody's surprised that disinfecting stuff is going down. Post-COVID, super high peaks last year. We're all a little bit less crazed and worried about sterilizing surfaces and stuff like that. So many of these things have declined as a natural ebb. And some of these, as you get down the list a little bit, there's not any great reason for why kitchen cleaners are going down and bathroom cleaners are going up. That's just some of the noise in the industry. Some of the themes here going on, though, I don't think anybody's surprised. Plant-based is really driving a lot of interest. Obviously, millennials, Gen Z, they're becoming household owners. More floor space, counter space to clean is being. If you looked at counter space and floor space to clean by age, that would be a really interesting statistic, and we didn't pull it for you. But that's really important to think about that as boomers start to age out of their traditional, they still with their traditional brands, but they're aging out because they have less space to clean. These younger people who are less brand loyal or interested or more open to natural products, they're getting more counter space, more floor space, more refrigerators to clean. So they're becoming a more important combination of this mix. So plant-based, eco-friendly, all natural, biodegradable. These are really important themes to these people, to all of us, but particularly to the younger people. Environmental, even fume-free. I like putting fume-free on this list because a lot of us don't use that language at work. That's just kind of consumer language. I've got a cleaning product. It doesn't really have fumes. That's like what my gasoline can has in the garage, but a consumer will write fume-free. Looking at the form factors here, not a lot new and different here. Paste pads, tablets, foams are growing. Foams are a pretty interesting area. I think there's a lot of opportunities for scrubbing bubble kind of approaches in different categories than we've had before. And then in terms of need states, deep cleaning is still, we mentioned this earlier in fabric care, deep cleaning is still really relevant and growing for consumers as they have all this new floor space, new household clean areas to clean with home ownership. So that's still really important. And deodorizing is still really important. Going back to my pet theme, that's what's really driving odor in the home today. It's actually being driven by pets. Declining antibacterial, disinfecting, mold removal, some other things like that. Back to sensory, we're slicing it kind of finely here, but when we look at sensory, I mentioned foaming in that prior need state kind of case, but bubbles as a sensory experience are associated with foaming, and those are pretty interesting. Those opportunities as we think about what we're delivering onto the surface, how visual we can make that. The world of TikTok, where everybody's putting 60-second demos together. Not everybody, but many people. Those could be really interesting approaches. So you might have a perfectly fine household spray that's got plant-based material. Meets all this, checks all these boxes, and if you can make that foam, it's more visual. You might have some impact. You might find a kind of interesting angle there. And these things are kind of declining, which are just sort of natural changes. Some stain removal stuff we're looking at. Well, what we call it use cases, like what are they trying to remove stains from? So laminate, coffee stains on laminate, coffee stains, hardwood stains. Puppies, hardwood, So many of the new homes now are using hardwood or manufactured hardwood. Kind of makes sense. I know what those things are all about. Scum spots, ink. Last time we ran this, ink wasn't on our thing because people weren't using much ink during the lockdown. And then sort of traditional things like grime, iron, which is associated with a lot of outdoor problems. Food and blood is kind of low, which is interesting compared to other categories. I think it's grown actually in fabric care. Wanted to look at COVID really quickly. It's not over. Let's not pretend it is. It's still out there and still affecting millions of people. It's still a problem. And so there's still some opportunities here. You have to figure out the ROI on it, or you may already have those initiatives going, but things to protect people, like the antimicrobials. I had pointed out that antimicrobial was down, and Procter had the antimicrobial spray for Febreze. But there's still probably an angle there. If I was on that brand, I might consider ways to talk about it as a protection story, very specifically versus antimicrobial, just maybe a slight communication change there. Deep cleaning is still associated with COVID, as well as broader impacts of cleaning, like the bigger house space that people have and stuff like that. Convenience is always going to be relevant in every category, but here, with post-COVID, there's still some level of cleaning to keep our homes safe and everything, but making that more convenient is going to be important for people. And killing viruses is still important. Slight change, slight nuances here about killing bacteria being less important. Virus still on that map. So slight nuances in the language. So big themes in household cleaning. Sanitizing, disinfecting is returned to the norm. So it's still important. There's still COVID out there, but it's not, last year when we would murder each other for Lysol. So it's the what for, like why, be very precise in the messaging of the positioning of the product. Like what are the use cases that are specifically being addressed by this product? And then back to what I mentioned in fabric care about that lexicon. So you have sustainability, plant-based, clean is super important. And you have to really figure out what's the right language for your product. For example, products that go on the floor that are close to pets and children have a different need for consumers. They have to really be less toxic than products that go on a bathroom mirror. And so you've got to think about the language in that consumer mind, that consumer use case of how it's most relevant and what's most appropriate for the brand positioning, but that's feasible. But it's really interesting as you do some primary research, you've probably in a lot of cases seen this, that that toxicity issue, the closer it gets to my person, the bigger an issue is for me, the further away it is, so if it's toilet cleaner, I'm probably less worried about toxicity than I am if it's a surface, counter surface cleaner, or, goes on the floor, as I mentioned, with pets and kids. So you have to think through that product angle and how that relates to the claims that A, you can make, but B, that you should make based on what you think is going to really resonate with consumers. Pets are here to stink. Again, I have 3 dogs, so I can say this without any pushback. They're here to stink. And I mentioned before, the number of households, it went from 67% of households have claimed to have pets up to 70 in 1 year. So that's nearly 4 million households added pets for the first time. Not just people who added a pet and already had one, but new pet ownership went up 3.9 million. There's not a lot of stuff that happens, maybe iPhones, right? Like iPhones could come out in a year and you see that kind of increase in household penetration for the newest model. There's not a lot of trends like that just blow up like that in 1 year. And this little bar chart, that's Americans' ownership of households that own houses compared to pets. That's never been that, we've never seen that flip before. It's always, we've had more homes than pets. Now we have more pets than homes per household than owned homes. So that's really interesting. We spend so much time in household cleaning thinking about our house. So how does pet care move into household cleaning more and more closely integrated is a really interesting question. Purpose-built cleaning solutions are an opportunity. This is where we want to specialize for uniqueness. There's lots of different lanes. Of course, we can't speak to what the people at Walmart want you to put on a shelf or Target wants you to put on the shelf, but in terms of the consumer needs, there's lots of different angles that you can take here between different use cases and different need states. So, are there different cleaning solutions needed for microfibers versus leather, countertops versus floors? Well, of course, mixing the form factors up, refill systems. There's lots of different ways to cut this to really come up with opportunities that are going to be unique and have important lanes that can all pull in those other things like the sustainability or the clean or the environmental issues.